All right, you've got your browser tabs open, Google Maps pulled up, and Zillow up on your phone. You're trying to figure out whether or not Wilmington, North Carolina is actually the right move for you and your family. And so this is the video for you, not in the generic YouTube content creator type of way. I built my entire business around people exactly in your situation, researching from hundreds or thousands of miles away, trying to decide if this city is worth uprooting everything for. And so in this video, I'm gonna give you the honest version, not the highlight reel, not the Chamber of Commerce brochure. The version I'd give my best friend if he called me up and said, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Wilmington. What do you have for me? Should I actually do it? That's exactly what this video is. We're gonna walk through all of the neighborhoods one by one, how they feel, what they cost, who they're right for, who they're wrong for, and the trade-offs that you need to be aware of. We're gonna talk about the real estate market with actual numbers and actual context, not the Instagram or Facebook version without context. We're gonna talk about the cost of living broken down into things that you can actually budget for, meaning housing, insurance, utilities, groceries, taxes, childcare, the job market, the schools, the lifestyle, and the honest downsides. We're discussing the traffic, insurance, hurricane risk, tourist season, and everything in between. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and let's dive into this video. What's up, guys? My name is Avery Hamilton. I am a real estate agent and team leader here with the Legacy Group at eXp Realty in Wilmington, North Carolina. This isn't just the market that I sell real estate in. This is where I actually live. It's my home. I grew up in upstate New York and I moved here on purpose with full intent of absolutely loving it, and that is exactly what happened. And so I chose to build my life here, which is why you can take this video and make sure that I'm going to be telling you the truth and sharing the full picture. Most mornings, I hit the cold plunge, I hit the gym just a few blocks away from Wilmington, and then we end up doing something, having coffee downtown, going on a beach walk, or something there between. There's a lot of agents making content out there about Wilmington just to pull in leads. And honestly, that's what part of this is for as well. But I'm honestly doing this to be useful. And that is not the same thing. I've told people with very high budgets not to move to Wilmington when it wasn't right for them. I've told people to hold off on buying because the timing wasn't right for them. And that's how we run our business, because it's the only way that makes sense long-term, and it's the only way that I can put my head down at night and actually sleep soundly. So hear everything that I'm saying through that lens. I'm not here to sell you on Wilmington. I don't really care if you like Wilmington or not. I'm here to help you figure out whether it is the best destination for you and ultimately the place you can build your life in. I've spent years guiding families from Charlotte, Raleigh, Northern Virginia, New Jersey, Ohio, Texas, California, England, Germany, all to move here to Wilmington, and I absolutely love this. I've helped them sort out the neighborhoods, the school districts, commute patterns, and the right time to buy and where to buy for them, their families, and their lifestyles. And I know all the answers to your questions before you ask them because I've heard them 1,000 times. So let's start with the real question. What actually makes Wilmington different from every other coastal city on the East Coast? First and foremost, Wilmington is a real city that happens to sit on the coast. It's not just a beach town that got a Target and a couple of grocery stores. It's not a resort that empties out in October. It's a mid-sized American city with a functioning downtown, a university, a regional medical center, a film industry, a growing tech and remote work network, and a real cultural life. And oh, by the way, the beach is within 15 minutes away. And that mix is rare. Myrtle Beach is fundamentally a tourist town that scaled up. Charleston is fantastic and it's beautiful, but more expensive with beaches further away. Wilmington gives you actual urban infrastructure with coastal access baked right into it. And second is the price. Wilmington is not cheap, don't get me wrong. It is fairly expensive compared to a lot of places in the US. Prices are up about 80% from pre-COVID times. If you bought here in 2018, you are doing extremely well equity-wise. But when you compare Wilmington to Raleigh, Charlotte, or other similar coastal markets in the mid-Atlantic, your dollar still goes further here than what you get over there. And third is the growth. This is not a city trying to relive its glory days. Wilmington is growing and continuing to do so. High-earning remote workers, retirees with real assets, and young professionals are moving here because they want the coastal lifestyle without New York or Miami pricing. And that growth is bringing new restaurants, new retail, new commercial projects, and a more diverse economic base. And fourth is a sense of place. This city has more than 300 years of history. You see it in the architecture, in the cobblestone streets, you see it in the food and the brickwork, and in the way that downtown feels on a random Tuesday morning. There's an identity here that you can't manufacture in a master plan community. And so let's talk numbers, but in a way that actually matters to you. Average home values in and around Wilmington are roughly in the low 400,000s as of early 2026. Appreciation has settled into the low single digits annually. That's a healthy, sustainable growth, not a bubble or a crash. And the market right now gives buyers something we didn't have in 2021 or 2022, time. Median days on market is roughly 2 to 2.5 months, and median days to go under contract is about 30 days. Inventory is up compared to the COVID frenzy, and homes are selling for just a few percent lower than asking price, which means that you as a buyer, you can do real due diligence, you can get inspections, you can negotiate repairs or credits, and you can actually sleep on a decision for a second instead of writing an offer in the driveway. And you can't say that about many of the northeastern markets that are still booming. Now, quick breakdown by price point. Under 500,000, it's the most competitive band of pricing. Well-priced homes in good school districts move quickly and sometimes get multiple offers. You don't have to panic, but you do need to be ready if the right home comes available. From 500 to about $1 million, this is more buyer-leaning market. More inventory, longer days on market, and more sellers willing to talk about concessions and rate buydowns. And above $1 million, completely property specific. Some homes fly off the market if they're truly dialed in and ready to go. Some sit because pricing is aspirational, but you absolutely need local context at this level of pricing. And where you land in Wilmington changes everything. Your commute, your school options, your daily routine, your social life. Let's walk through that right now. And so let's start with the hub of it all, downtown Wilmington. Most people expect a cute little waterfront with a couple of restaurants, and what they find actually surprises them. Downtown is built around the Cape Fear River and the Riverwalk. It's about 1.75 miles long along the waterway. This is not a cheesy tourist pier. It's where people actually live and they actually go. They're gonna be running and walking their dogs and walking their kids in the strollers. You've got restaurants that open up right onto the water, live music in the evenings, events, and lots of people that actually live downtown, not just visitors. The historic district is the real deal. Homes that are about 150 to 200 years old. This is where you get a lot of the northeastern type vibes with the old school real estate. You see Greek Revival, Italianate, Victorians, and a lot of them restored and lived in today. Front Street gives you several blocks of walkable downtown, local restaurants, wine bars, galleries, and shops. And the pricing downtown run from the 400,000s up to about $1 million or so, depending on the size and the condition. If it's move-in ready and it's a big home, you might be looking at that $1 million price point. Condos and townhomes start in the mid 200s and run up to about $1 million as well, depending on the location and the view. And then we have the cargo district in nearby areas just south of the core that are in transition. Breweries, coffee roasters, food concepts, and more mixed use is coming to this region, but right now, very, very popular. And so who is downtown good for? It's good for creatives and remote workers who value character over quiet cul-de-sac living, retirees who are done with suburban driving. If you have young kids and you're very school zone sensitive, downtown probably isn't going to be your first pick compared to like Ogden and the Mayfair area or some of the southern zones that we'll discuss here in a minute. And now we're moving on to Midtown and College area. Midtown is the engine of the city. It runs along College Road and the surrounding neighborhoods like UNCW, Forest Hills, Glen Mead, Pine Valley, and the established communities in between. The housing stock is a mix of mid-century ranch homes on larger lots, 80s and 90s two-story homes, early 2000s subdivisions with very few new construction homes sprinkled in. Generally, you're looking at about $300,000 up to really about $600,000 or so with some more renovated, move-in ready homes. And some of them are pushing price points a little bit higher. Forest Hills, for example, is one of the most loved neighborhoods in town. Big trees, mature landscaping, wide streets, and houses that hold their value because people specifically want to be in Forest Hills. And UNCW brings energy and employment to this part of town, plus arts, lectures, and sports. Greenfield Lake is another big feature, a cypress-ringed lake with trails, paddle boats, and live music at the amphitheater in the warmer months. And then we have the Mayfair and Ogden corridor. And if you're researching from out of state, this is probably one of the areas that you keep seeing on your search. Ogden sits in the North Wilmington area. Median prices are about mid 400,000s up to well over $1 million if you're closer to the waterways. And so many people end up here because you have great schools, great location, and newer modern homes. The Ogden Laney School Path is one of the most sought after in the county. Ogden Elementary is consistently rated very well, and the feeder pattern into the Noble Middle and Laney High is the track most families from strong suburban districts find most similar. So if you're coming from Northern Virginia or other well-educated areas, this is your spot. And location-wise, you're about 10 minutes from Wrightsville Beach, 15 to 20 minutes to downtown, and you're right next to Mayfair Town Center. Mayfair is the open-air town center with the Whole Foods, a movie theater, restaurants, shops, gyms, and regular events going on. It functions as a town square for this part of Wilmington. And oh, by the way, Landfall is right nearby. A gated golf community in this corridor is one of the most prestigious addresses in the area. With homes from the 700,000s into the multiple seven-figure mark, this neighborhood is truly exquisite. And then if you keep going north, you hit Porter's Neck. The lot sizes here are larger, the place slows down, and the homes generally are bigger. The community is built around Porter's Neck Country Club, a Tom Fazio designed course. Homes generally run from about the mid 400,000s up through $1 million for custom homes on larger lots or more private lots. And there is also waterfront properties here. The vibe here is more of like, we're staying put for a long time. We want a sense of community type person. And so you do see a lot of retirees and relocation buyers from the Northeast and the Midwest. The trade-off is the commute. To get to downtown, you're often looking at 25 to 30 minutes. In summer, with beach traffic and tourist traffic, that can push closer to 40 minutes. If most of your life is north or out toward Hampstead, it's great. But if you're looking to stay downtown, work downtown, it can have some time restraints with regard to the traffic. And northwest of downtown, you get into Castle Hayne, and within the city limits, you have the Northside area. Castle Hayne gives you more land and a little more of a rural feel at the lower price point. You'll typically see prices from the upper 200,000s and into about 400,000s for a lot of the resale inventory. So you're trading new construction and polished HOAs for more space, more trees, and more of a working class character than that of downtown or even Ogden and Porter's Neck. And there's also some really underrated river access along the Northeast Cape Fear River. And there are a couple neighborhoods along the river that are spectacular as well. North side of Wilmington proper is in active transition currently. Some blocks are improving quickly, some are still in rough shape. If you got a higher tolerance for the up and coming and the longer time horizon, there are opportunities here close to downtown that don't exist in more established areas. And now let's talk about the southern part of Wilmington, because this is a huge place that a lot of relocation content glosses over, mine included. When locals say Monkey Junction, they're talking about a busy intersection area around the Carolina Beach Road and College Road in South Wilmington. This is one of the most convenient areas of the city to actually live your daily life. You're about 10 to 15 minutes from downtown, 10 to 15 minutes from Carolina Beach. You're close to multiple grocery stores, gyms, restaurants, and everyday conveniences or services. The neighborhoods branching off of Monkey Junction and the Masonboro area give you a mix of well-established subdivisions, some newer communities, and pockets of homes with really nice access to the Intercoastal Waterway. Masonboro and the surrounding communities are especially attractive if you want good public school options, proximity to the water, more established feeling and local feeling rather than bigger master plan communities, and ultimately just a really mature landscape. There are neighborhoods where you can be on your boat and out toward the Masonboro Island or the Intercoastal within minutes without paying Wrightsville Beach prices. Price-wise, a lot of the southern Wilmington single-family home neighborhoods fall into the $350,000 to about $700,000 range, with waterfront and premium lot homes going much higher than that. So if you like the idea of being between downtown and the beaches with a ton of day-to-day convenience and a slightly less master plan feel than Ogden or Mayfair, this corridor deserves a really close look. And now let's head south across the bridge to get onto Pleasure Island. We have videos on Pleasure Island talking about Carolina Beach and Curie Beach. Carolina Beach has its classic boardwalk, more nightlife, and a laid-back, slightly funky beach town energy. You've got condos, older cottages, and newer construction all mixed in. Think live music, arcades, festivals, and a classic we actually live at the beach lifestyle, although it is much more of your touristy vibe than that of Curie Beach. Curie Beach, further south on the island, is quieter and more residential. Smaller, lower key, very family oriented. And so if you like the idea of being at the beach but don't need the boardwalk energy right outside your doorstep, Curie Beach tends to be more of your speed. Price-wise, both Curie Beach and Carolina Beach have a wide range. Entry points with condos and townhomes, and the single family homes that can climb into the high 6 or even 7 figures closer to the ocean or the ocean front. So we're looking about $500,000 up to about $3 million or so. And the big trade-off for living full-time on Pleasure Island is that you'll cross the bridge every day to get to a lot of your activities, your jobs, your conveniences, and a lot of regular life in Wilmington. And in the summer, the traffic is bad. But if your work is remote or you're retired and your priority is that walk golf cart to the beach lifestyle, it can be absolutely phenomenal. All right, and quickly, I want to touch on Leland and Hampstead because they're practically part of the same conversation. Leland is right across the river in Brunswick County. It gives you master plan communities, new construction, and lower property taxes than that of New Hanover County, with a 10 to 25 minute drive to downtown Wilmington, depending on traffic. Hampstead is on the north side of Wilmington, up Highway 17 in Pender County, and it gives you larger lots, great access to Topsail Island and the Intercoastal Waterway, strong schools that are in the Topsail School District, and a ton of new construction and at a lower price than comparable homes in Wilmington. And so if you're a remote worker or you're not commuting to downtown 5 days a week, both Leland and Hampstead can make a ton of sense for you, and we have plenty of videos and content about them. But with that being said, let's talk money in a way that you can plug into a spreadsheet and that actually makes sense. Overall, Wilmington comes in a bit below the national average in terms of the cost of living, with housing still relatively affordable compared to many coastal markets, where home values in the city float in the low to mid $400,000 range. With a $400,000 to $500,000 budget, you have real options in good neighborhoods with good schools, and especially in places like Ogden and parts of Midtown and the Masonboro and Monkey Junction areas. If you're selling a more expensive home in a high-cost market, think a $700,000 plus townhome in Northern Virginia or New Jersey, it's very common to buy a bigger, newer, nicer single-family home here for a lot less. And oh, by the way, you're cutting your taxes by probably more than half. And in some cases, eliminate your mortgage entirely and just pay the yearly taxes, insurance, and the utilities. Property taxes in New Hanover County are moderate by national standards, and Brunswick and Pender are even lower. North Carolina's flat state income tax is significantly gentler than many other states people are moving from. But the big wild card is insurance. Because this is a coastal market, homeowners and flood insurance can surprise people from inland or northern areas. Budget a few $1,000s a year for homeowners insurance and more if you're close to the water or in an older home. And add flood insurance to the mix if you're in a designated flood zone, or even not. I always recommend flood insurance because you just never know. But while homeowners insurance gets a bad rap, it often includes the wind and hail insurance that we're forced to have here in coastal North Carolina. The wind and hail coverage is typically sold separately from most insurance brokers and can sometimes be double your actual homeowner's policy. And the flood insurance can be either nothing or it can be several $1,000s depending on what part of Wilmington you actually live in. But if you're in a no flood zone or a flood zone X, which is outside the 500-year flood zone, your flood insurance is going to be about $500 per year. Kind of silly not to get flood insurance if you're not in a flood zone. You should just get it anyway to protect your assets. Now, utilities are fairly typical for the Southeast. Power bills spike in the peak summer heat if you're running older HVAC systems. Internet is good. Fiber is even available in some of the more developed areas. And one thing to consider about the utilities here is that there's very little natural gas here. Mostly all the HVAC systems run on electric. And so that is why your electric bill can be much higher. Water is typically very cheap depending on the area. So if you're worried about utility bills here, they're not very high. But what can happen is if we get a hurricane or we get heavy winds or heavy weather, your electric can go out, and that is your only power source in a lot of cases here in Wilmington. So that's where I recommend generators to a lot of my clients. Childcare is one of the more challenging line items here in the financial equation. Quality childcare is not cheap, and wait lists are absolutely real. If you're moving here with infants, toddlers, or just young kiddos, get on the list before you even arrive. And now let's talk jobs, schools, lifestyle, and the honest downsides. On the job side, healthcare, education, the port, skilled trades, and the film industry are real pillars here. If you're in medicine, trades, or you work remotely, Wilmington can make a lot of sense for you. If you need a massive corporate ladder with multiple Fortune 500 companies, tons of big law firms, or Wall Street style finance jobs, Charlotte or the Raleigh-Durham Triangle make more sense for you. And then on schools, New Hanover County has some very solid schools, and especially in specific corridors like Ogden, parts of Midtown, and areas of South Wilmington that feed into the stronger high schools. There's also private options and magnet programs that open up more flexibility if you're willing to apply and potentially drive to those facilities. And if you're coming from one of the absolute top-ranked suburban districts in the Northeast, you'll want to be very deliberate about your research with respect to the school districts and target the school districts that only fit your expectations. But now let's talk about lifestyle, because this is where Wilmington punches above its weight class. Daily access to the beach, Riverwalk, the breweries, the restaurant scene, the festivals, the farmers markets, that's all stuff that makes people stay, and that's all stuff that happens on a daily basis. But the downsides to it are the summer is hot and humid, and depending on where you're coming from, it can be intolerable to a lot of people. Tourist traffic is very real. Certain roads and bridges get backed up, and if you're coming from Leland, it's truly a bottleneck. And hurricane season is something that you have to mentally and practically prepare for in every single year. Because yes, it's real, but it's not as bad as they tell you. You need to be the kind of person who can live with watching the tropics in August and September, having a plan, having the right insurance, and being okay evacuating should the weather dictate. My family's plan is if it's a Category 3 hurricane or higher, we're out of town. If it's Cat 2 or lower, we're staying put and having a party. And so some people adjust, and some people adjust and it becomes another season, like winter up north. Other people find that it never really sits right with them and they end up wanting to move back home. And so who is Wilmington actually right for? Wilmington tends to be a fantastic fit for those of you that are remote workers, entrepreneurs who can bring your income with you. Healthcare professionals, trades, and people plugged into the local economy. Families who want their kids outside, on the water, and not just in front of TV or computer screens. And retirees who want active coastal lifestyles without going all in on the Florida pricing and lifestyle there. However, you should probably slow down and think twice if you need a huge corporate ecosystem to climb into. You hate the heat and the humidity, you absolutely cannot live with the hurricane risk, or you need very top tier public school districts and aren't open to private or magnet programs. But if you're still watching and you're thinking, yeah, I still like this, I still want this, then the next step is to get very specific. Think about what's your price range? How old are your kids if you have them? Are you a remote worker? Are you retired? Or are you tied to an office? Dialing in those things is what turns this from YouTube research to an actual plan. If you want help mapping this to real neighborhoods and real properties, that's literally what my team and I do all day, every day. Reach out, tell us your situation, and we'll help you figure out whether or not Wilmington actually is the move, or if you should just hit pause. So with that said, guys, I hope you learned something from this video, and until the next one, peace. See you later. Bye.